Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Bava daf Kuf Nun Beis. We're going to begin on the very top of Kuf Nun Beis and with Aleph. Itmar. Regarding a matna shchimira, when a person who is dying gives a gift, but we know, as we saw in yesterday's daf, that it's not necessary for him to actually perform a kinyan. But shekaseh ba kinyan. He actually wrote down regarding a kinyan, which normally doesn't need to be done. So on this Beirab Mishmei Rav, who said the name of Rav, the Amri Archavei Atrei Richshe. The fact that he made a kinyan is so that they're able to do something stronger. So similar to riding like two horses. Basically, the idea is that he wanted certain dinim of a shchimira to apply, and also dinim of a healthy person to apply, as the Gemara is going to explain. Shmuel Omer liyadana ma'edoin. We don't know this person's intentions. Ma'edon bo. So Beira Mishmei Rav Amri Archavi Atrei Rechshi. What does that mean? So Harihi Kamatnish Bari, the fact that he had it written down, a kinyan. On one level, he wanted to be able to establish it just like a gift of a healthy person, even though he's dying, but he wanted to be like a matnas bari. Harihi kamatnas shchimira, and has the same dinim as a shchimira. So in regard to certain things, he wants to make it like a shchimira, in regards like a bari. Harihi kamatnas bari shim omadeno chayzer. We know when it comes to someone who is a shchimira, if let's say he gets healthy, and he gave away everything, so then the din is that it's an umdana that he probably didn't want, obviously, that to happen. I'm happy he's alive, but he only gave everything away thinking he was going to die. But now that he lives, he should get everything back. However, when it comes to, and therefore it's not really such a great gift, because you're getting a gift and you know that you may not keep it. But if it was done in this way, we say Shima but Einu Chayzer. It's like a bari, a healthy person who gives a gift, that even if he gives everything away, the din is that you cannot retract on it. If a person would say that this is comparable to a milval pel, like an oral loan, then it takes upon itself that status. But that can only be regarding a shchimira, that he just says something and therefore it takes upon itself that stringency, not a bari. Says the Rashba. We're talking about when he gave everything away. If he only gave some away, shikapo kinyan, and there was a kinyan, so plig behedya havi leilamemer matna shchimi rab mixes suchulu. V'oid hatanan mastis and stamashir karka koshu. Our Mishnah doesn't say anything like that. It just says that you left land. Then matnasu matana. Then when you get better, then the gift that you gave is a matana, because then why did you leave something for yourself? It must be because you already cheshbon that maybe you may live. There's no distinction where the right wrote the kinyan in the document. How could he say he doesn't know? Okay. Skipping about 7 lines, the Rashba midramina no lo come on. We're going to ask later on, Rav Yehuda and Shmuel, Shchimira shekasav kol nechasav, bechlal, dahanami b'kaisav kol nechasav mayri. So again, we're talking about a situation where everything was written away. So therefore, that's how Rav understands it. It's considered to be archavi atrei richshi. Shmuel omer liyadana ma'idun ba. I don't know what this person's intentions were, this Shchimira. Shmuel lo gomer lachnois el b'shtar. Maybe he only wanted it actually to work with a star of inshtar chamisa, and there's a din of inshtar chamisa, and therefore we don't know necessarily that it's considered to be good. Okay, let's go down to the bottom, a little bit down on the Rashbams. So archavei atrei richshi hitl shtei koiches. Basically, it means that he's given 2 strengths. She'im amanei chayzer. If he survives, he can't get the gift back. The Kivad did have a shchimira k'ksum damu. The shchimira is given. Therefore, because of that, since it's k'ksum k'masurin, you don't really need a kinyan. Hilkach liafas koiches shalakabo matana hikna b'kinyan. The reason why he wrote that there was a kinyan is only to strengthen the person who received the gift. He's basically saying, even if I get healthy, I'm not going to take this back. This gift will remain yours forever. And then She'im Amar Havasul Appoini, so B'zayis Hamatana Im Nasan Lo Halva. If you gave a loan, Shechayev Lo Ishacher, you owed someone else, Afagav Deleika Mamad Shloshten. Normally, the way it works, to be able to pay off the person, all three parties need to be there. Manli Biyadcha to the Lapoini with Mamad Shloshten Kana. So the Gemara says in Gittin that if you say, give A owes B and B owes C, so A says just give it directly to C, that works. So the chiddush is, even without Mamad Shloshton, this kinyan would work. Okay. However, going to Shmuel, he says, I don't understand what his intentions are. Dilma says, Rashbam will kind of klal. Maybe he doesn't get anything. I feel amazed. Even when he dies, they come on to Havi Kani Ba'amira Ba'alma. But Savais Shchimira, it's based on his command. However, Leka Shir Nechasim, since he's leaving nothing for himself, Lomalisu Laknui Besuder. Why did he have to do a kinyan? He's giving it all away. Hilkach Ikol Meimer Mehadar Hadar. Maybe he changed his mind. V'akim Menikoyach Maneshchimira. Maybe he's saying, I don't want the dinim of a shchimira to work, but rather I want the kinyan to only work with a sudar. And kinyan taifis shel nischav l'haknos el lachamisa. His kavanah was only that it should be required after he died. When he dies, it goes to the yarshim, and therefore it doesn't go to the person he gives a gift to. Okay, so that is the opinions. That's the opinion of Rav. And Shmuel again says, question 11. So my time is Shmuel. My time, my shna. So he says like this. Time of the reason of Shmuel's deal occur b'kinyano matna shchimira. Maybe he didn't want it to be like a din of a shchimira, and that's why he required a kinyan. But it doesn't work. Even though we're going to see in a second, this is actually, we didn't do this yet, that if you did a kinyan, that it does help. Okay, we'll see that in the Gemara. We didn't get to that yet. So with Shmuel and Shmuel. So we're going to have steers on Rav and Shmuel. The Sholch Rav and Mishmin and Rabbi Avo, Havi Yade. You should know. Shesholch Rebbe Lezel Goyla. He sent to Goyla Mishum Rabbeinu named Rabbeinu the following. It says, we said previously on Daf Kuf Chav Hey, this piece, the Shchimira Shaimer. If a Shchimira says Kisvu Tnu, not only write it down but also give it, right? But he actually wasn't actually given, wasn't written until after he died. Manul Ploini, that this should be given amount of money to Ploini Mace. Ain Kaisim V'Naisten, you can't write it down. Shemului Garmulach Naisa El Bishtar, because maybe he didn't want it to act like a shchimira, because the shchimira doesn't need a kinyan. So the fact that he said kisvu tnu, maybe it's because his kavanah was that it should require a kinyan. But his kavanah is that the kinyan should only work after he died. But you can't do a kinyan after he dies because it automatically goes to the yarshim. The Einshtal Achamisa. That is what was said in the name of Rabbeinu, which sounds a lot like the sheet of Shmuel. The Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel, halachas kaisu naisnin, the yitaka right and give it. So what do you mean? I thought you said before that you can't do that. So how do we reconcile the steer of Rav? How do you reconcile the steer of Shmuel? So Kash Rav and Shmuel, Kash and Shmuel and Shmuel. Kash Rav and Kash and Shmuel and Shmuel. So the Rav and Rav will Kasha. The first statement in which Rav said that a person who's a shchimira shikasaba kinyan, that Rav says it's archavi atrei richshi, is the kanu mine, is because there was a kinyan that was done while he was alive, and therefore the fact that he did it obviously showed it was to strengthen this person who you gave a gift to. When we said in this other case, in which we said a shchimira who says ksisavu tenu, so he says the ein kais v'naisnin is because the loy kanamine, he didn't do a kinyan, and therefore since the shchimira didn't do a kinyan, so the fact that he said this, so again it's possible that his intention was it should only be chal after he died. He didn't even write it, so therefore you can't write it now. Shmuel kasha. Why? So b'miyafes koicho, we're talking in the second case where he was being miyafes koichai. Again, like he said, that he was trying to strengthen his words, and therefore because of that he could actually write it and give it. In other words, he feels that the shchimira who said this, it was only to strengthen the person who was giving it to. Yosef Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Achori the Rava, so he was sitting behind Rava. Yosef Rava committed Rav Nachman, he said Rav Nachman, Kol boy minei. They asked the question. Shmuel, does Shmuel really say that Shmuel Gamalach Noisel B'Shtar V'Nshtar Achamisa? Does he really say that? Shmuel, but he says elsewhere the Shchimir Shekasam Kol Nechasav L'Cherem. If a person says, "I'm going to write all my possessions away to someone else," even if he actually made a kinyan, Amad, and he survives, Chayzer. We say that even in that case, you're taka Chayzer, that you can get the gift back. So we don't, right? Why? Because Biadua, as we continue to Kuf Nun Bezim and Bez, it's understood the reason why he gets it back is Shalol HaYakinyan El Machmas Amisa. The only reason why he did his kinyan is because he thought he was going to die. So says the Rashbam, Hilka Chayzer boy. That's why he can retract. Ha'im Mace, if he did die, Havakabel Matana, then the guy does get the gift. V'lo Amrinan, we don't say Shema Lo Gamalach Noisa El B'Shtar V'Nshar Chamisa V'Kasha de Shmuel. We see clearly that a person doesn't say, well, maybe his intention was only it should be acquired after Misa, but in Shtar Chamisa, we don't say that. It's only that he lived that he gets to keep it. Mashma, if he died, it would be a matana. So on this, v'achvile biyadeh, so he waved with his hands, v'ishtik. He was silent. Says Rashbam, shiodea tiritz b'davar. He knew how to answer this question. V'ishtik. Ki kam, when he got up, Omer Rav Nachman, Rabbi Yitzchak Rabba, my achvilach, what are you doing, like waving your hand? So Malay, b'miyafas kaichai. The reason why is because he was not saying it should only be chal afterwards. He said this lashon again so that the person will be able to have a stronger connection to it, and therefore it's a way of almost guaranteeing he'll keep the matana. So heichidami miyafas koicha. What exactly does that mean? So Rav Chisda, the kinyan minei, the fact that he made a kinyan ma'isiv al matanta da, it adds on to this matana. Says Rashbam, Koloimer, v'kinyan minei kinyan gomer l'hoisev l'yafos koichai l'var hamatana shenasen bal peh v'lishni yisero l'yafos koichu. The fact is, it was a gift anyway. So then why did he have to do it this way? It was only to strengthen him, and therefore that's the reason why we say, not that it's, his intention was only Achar Misa, no. It was only doing it to strengthen. Okay. Now, Pshita, the following case is simple. You write to one person. A Shchimira writes all of his possessions to Ruvain as a Matna Shchimira, and then afterwards he writes everything to Shimon. Says Rashbam, of Eloi Mosul Hen as a star. He never gave the star to either of them, but he basically wrote to both of them. So what's the din? So Hainu dechiyasa Ravdimi Omer Daitaki Mavatelas Daiteki. A Daitaki can remove, a second Daitaki can remove the first one. So it says Rashbam, Shosheni Mavatel Daikashal Rishon. The Shchimira Yochel Asabo, because the Shchimira at any point can always retract while he's alive. Hilkach Achrin Kana. Therefore, the fact that he wrote it for the first one, and then afterwards to the second one, it's clear that he was meaning to retract from the first one, and therefore it goes to the second person. Okay, that's what that means. Now, what happens if Kosav, he wrote it, V'zicha Lezeh, that he wrote it to Ruvain, and he actually gave the star over to Ruvain. And then after he did that, Kosav Ezichel is that. He wrote it and gave it over to Shimon. So it's now both of them are holding on to these documents. So Rav Omer Rishon Kaina. So Rav says the fact that you gave it to the first person, that's mamish a total kinyan, and therefore you can no longer retract because he actually was kained, and therefore the second person doesn't get. Shmuel Omer no sheni kaina. Shmuel, interestingly enough, says, just like, says the Rashbam, Kedin matna shchimira b'chol nechasav, just like a shchimira who gives away everything, shein ba kinyan, that's not considered to be a kinyan if like he lives, because if he comes back, he survives, it all goes back to him. So therefore, the first gift is really nothing, because if he lives, he's not going to keep it. Anytime we have a din that if he gets back, he can retract, you can always retract on the gift. The fact that he wrote for the second person and gave it to him, so it goes to the second guy. That's the svar of Shmuel. Rabbi Marishan Kaina Hari Kamanas Bari. Shmuel Omer Sheni Kana. Why? Because Hari Kamanas Shchimira. Okay. I have a fligabach hadazim. Understand? We already heard this before. After all, where do we see this? B'matna Shchimira shekasa b'kinyan. We already know this, so why is it mentioned it again? Maybe it's only because it was a kinyan. The Lord Kanmin, there was no kinyan. Maybe Hitaka would agree to Shmuel that the second guy would get. That the second guy gets. That's only because there was no kinyan. But let's say the first guy did a kinyan. The person wrote all of his possessions to someone else, and he did a kinyan mahu. What is it then? So shalchahu ein achar kinyan klum. So he says there is no kinyan, ein achar kinyan klum. There's nothing after that. Okay, let's look at question 12. Madua nechaku Rav Shmuel gam b'ksav zichel zeh av shekvar nechlu b'matna shchimira shekasav ba kinyan. So again, because the second case is there was a kinyan. Kamashmon the Rav the afal pi deloy konmine bekinyan havi yafoi koyach. Even if there was not a kinyan, nonetheless his intentions of saying this was to strengthen him. All right, let's keep on going a little bit more. Kufnun gimel manav. So saver minei hani mili la'acher. We thought that maybe the only time it goes to the second person, or maybe, says Rashbam, the Einul Acher Kinyan Klum, that the second guy doesn't get it, is only because it's a different person. But if the second person is you, so maybe you could retract that if you get better from your sickness, that the first person should not be able to be koinit, because it's clear that you only did it machmas misa. So Amrul Rav Chisda Kiyas Rav Huna Mikufri Pirsha explained bein la'atzmoi bein la'cherim. Doesn't matter. Even if the second person is for you yourself to keep it, nonetheless the first person is koinit. Hahu de konamine. There was a person who actually made a king and also committed Rav. Who no Amr my evidach? What should we do? Do achnis kid machnu inshi. You didn't behave in the way that normal people behave. Says the Rashbam. Shchimira hanoisnu acher misa. A shchimira who gives something after his death. Wadas shiachzru behen im yamdu shikoisen. Mekanyin o koisen maknin. So you say this with the intention that if you get better, then you can get it. So in this case, even though you said it for yourself, that we don't make any distinction, it still goes only to the first person. Okay, we're going to stop there, but let's see maybe another question. Let's look at TA17. Okay, didn't do that. TB17. My time to Shmuel. My Shmuel. Okay, so this we had already, which is question 11. Kuf Nun Beis and Aleph. I said Shmuel yesh safik min adin v'hacha yesh kinyan yesh hevdel. Okay, that's not. Hadol economy Shmuel and Shmuel kasha miyafes koichai TB 17. Matana shein kaisaba lo lashon matana bar adka.